Right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming, especially in times when all the mines and all the offices are getting ready for festive season. But as always, I think for us, we appreciate that our members are here, which is again, the AGM being an opportunity for us to reflect on the year, but also to rightfully provide you with progress. What has happened in 2025? Before we start, there's been a few apologies from our members. Shelley Bethune, Niels Ordenal, Judy Fuller, Barbara Kettes, and Heidi Benhouwer. Sorry for the pronunciation. So they send their apologies. And of course, we are unable to reach a quorum, but we also recognize that we need to proceed, and this will be ratified in the next possible meeting in the year 2026 to make sure that we have enough members available even when we do that ratification. So with that said, I would like to continue just for tonight's agenda. First on the agenda, we have the welcoming apologies and decorum, which I've just dealt with. And then we have the acceptance of the agenda. And then we would then look at if there's any correction and approval of minutes from the last AGM. And we have and Andreas is going to give us our financial report. And then, of course, I'm going to deliver our chairperson's report and then have a discussion. And thereafter, we will be we'll be electing committee members nominated for the year. And then any other business. But I think most exciting tonight, we will be having young Nafimane, who is going to be our guest speaker tonight. And the presentation is titled Gaming for Sustainability. But nonetheless, I think I'll just like to hear from the audience, from the members, if you all had a look at the minutes that has been circulated. And if that's the case, can we all agree to approve or ratify any correction? Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so, are we all okay with the agenda, or is there any other method that we feel should be added? Do you all accept? Thank you. And in terms of the minutes that were circulated, I'm assuming we have all had a look at the minutes. And if so, are we all okay with the minutes, or are there any corrections that needs to happen? Thank you, John. Thank you, Diana. Great. So without further ado, I would like to call on Andreas to give us our financial report. I think we are very fortunate to have him on board, and he always makes sure that we take care of the piggy, especially that you are dealing with young people. It's safe to say that we are in good hands, and Andreas always makes sure that we are within the limits of our budgets, but also we make sure that every single penny is accounted for, and I think sustainability is also accountability. So without wasting time, Andreas, over to you. I beg your pardon? Yes, it has been integrated. So I'm just trying to. It's not working. Yeah. Doesn't seem to work. Or should I press it harder? Okay. Okay, there we go.
Is there anything that you need to view?
No, it should be fine now. Yeah. So over to you, Andreas. So this is to press next.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I will be quick. You need the microphone, I've got an extremely loud voice, and then we have 5 people, but anyway. Okay, on the point of order. Right, so here we have the AGM 25, the financial report dealing with up to December 24. which is obviously quite a while back already, but obviously one always reports on the historical situation. So here we go on the income side, 24 versus 23. The good news is that the corporate membership and also the other membership is steady. As you can see there, does this pointer thing work here or not? Yeah, okay, there you see there, that's pretty steady. So that's good news that we maintain that support from the corporates and the other membership. And then you will see that the other income is actually quite a lot higher than the previous year. And that's usually, that's mainly due to the project funding. We've had some big projects running through, and therefore the total received on that score was almost 400,000 as opposed to only 442 last year. And the projects that we are running are those sustainable development goals, which you will have that presentation on later. And then there's the EI8 tracker, which I'm sure Reinhard will comment on. And then there is that NAMDEP project for the Tsaukaip Park. Or how do you pronounce it again? Tsaukaip Park. And that runs through news, so therefore you have that high income there, which then obviously also has the corresponding high expenditure, which we'll see that just now. And then there's just some membership statistics. So I mean, the membership is not as good as it used to be, but it has stabilized in the last couple of years. So it's that's actually quite gratifying. And then obviously the total income is much higher this year because of this project funding situation. Okay, then we come to the expenditure side. Now, as I said just now, obviously with the higher projects, there's also much higher project costs. Okay, so there is that figure as opposed to last year, so quite a lot higher there. So that's again for the same reasons. Last year, the audit fees were very high because that was partly a carry forward from prior year. But in general, the audit fees are far too high for this kind of operation. And then I might tell you they get it all wrong, and I have to fix it, So, I mean, I'm very disenchanted with the auditors of these days, In my day, they would have been completely different. But anyway, right, the rental expenditure was also a bit higher because we had to move offices. The NNF is renovating their offices, so therefore we had to move, and that was a slightly higher rent. And then the employee and other costs, all the other cost categories you can see are pretty much in line. Okay, so the ones that are out of line I explained now. Okay, so then we have the net result. So there to note is that in previous years we've had some shortfalls, but the last couple of years we have actually managed to come out. The 23 was just about a break even, and 24 we're actually having a bit of a surplus. But that is also due to a so-called cut-off. Okay, so what happens is that on these projects you get funds at certain milestones, and then you have the expenditure against it, and then you obviously at year end you have to make a cut. You see, and we say how much of that income is relating to how much of the expenditure, and that doesn't always 100% match because you haven't incurred all the costs yet relating to some money you might have received. Okay, so there's a bit of a mismatch on the projects. Okay, therefore, in this year we have a bit of a surplus. Okay, because of that, to a large extent because of that, which is obviously in a way quite nice, but then it will probably then end up in next year being then less of a surplus or possibly a small deficit. Okay, so that's the situation at the moment, and then that brings us to the accumulated funds, which at this stage stand at 211,000, which is basically the accumulated funds, which are largely represented by investments, cash and equivalents investments in the bank. There's some current liabilities, the normal current liabilities, but largely that is actually in the bank. And there's just a graph showing how that has been going. So this year it's a bit better, as I just explained, but in general, you can see we are definitely in a solvent position over the years. So we make sure that our accumulated funds remain in the plus. They go into the minus, and you're insolvent. Okay, which obviously one must not allow to happen in any organization. Okay, right. That's about it. Thank you. Any questions? As always, questions are not allowed because I'm deaf. But if you have some, then you can speak in the mic.
Not from me, thank you.
Anybody have some questions? Thank you.
Was that a hand? Thanks very much, Andreas. And as I've mentioned, again, we are very fortunate to have Andreas on board to make sure that we are well aligned with our budgets. I mean, of course, as you can see, of course, things have been very steady with news. And unfortunately, of course, the reality is also that our members are not increasing at the pace that we wanted them to increase. But nonetheless, I think in the past few years, given the number of members and the kind of new leadership we have been relatively doing very well in terms of engaging, but also sticking to the objectives of news. So in light of our financial position, I think it will be fair for me to give an update as the chairperson to reflect on the year, so what was done in the year, and sort of what is the future outlook. So before I get into what has been done, I think I found it very important and pertinent that I put down a few significant points. And of course, one of them is to really highlight that 2025 has been marked by a lot of climate uncertainty. As we all know by now, we are at crossroads. Globally, we are entangled, in the meta crisis of very complex problems that continues to affect us, both society as well as biodiversity. And I think in light of that, we are required to strongly improve our efforts in resilience. And of course, global climate change signals, we've all been reading about the record heat rising, escalating extreme weather. I mean, even at our doorsteps, we are also noticing more and more wildfires. We have seen what happened in Etosha, but also on globally, we have seen the kind of increasing floods and the very extreme events. So we are really living with crisis, and it's really up to us to make sure that we think differently about resilience and what that would mean, especially in the context of Namibia. And of course, this year there was COP23, and I felt I put that because I think on the agenda there was really an urgent push for a deeper cut ongoing fossil fuels versus the renewable debates, really about how much more renewables do we cater for. And I think it was also very warming to have noticed that over the last years, there have been significant investments in renewables as well. And of course, what we are facing now is we are in a poly-crisis, which means that the kind of problems that we face today are, of course, reinforcing. And we have these major problems that are reinforcing each other, from societal problems, ecology, also to economic problems. And of course, for us news, over the years, our focus has always been conservation. And in 2022, we had a look at our constitution, but just to reflect, to say, well, how do we really improve what we do beyond environmental conservation, beyond environmental awareness? And we thought, of course, maybe it would be nice also to have a look at our theory of change, which is really about how do we contribute significantly to change. And one of the things that came across was that we start looking at sustainable development as a whole. And that has led to a number of activities that our youth groups have been doing over the last years, whether it's setting up backyard gardens or helping to support food systems, which is on top of the other outing activities we do. And I'm going to be reflecting on some of those things that we've managed to do in the last year. So news has a portion as a component of news youth. And one of our flagship projects, which I don't really want to dwell into very much because Nafimane, she's going to be talking about it tonight, is a platform called Games for the SDGs, which was founded in 2016. And I think we have been very fortunate for the last almost 8 years having funding support from the Hans Edel Foundation. And the idea is, of course, is to rethink how to promote awareness around the Sustainable Development Goals and sustainability in the whole. In as much as contemporary classroom setups have worked in generations to generations, we thought young people would need a new way to learn. And we discovered that gaming is a fundamental interface for getting young people to have fun, but also to learn about issues that affect them on an everyday basis. And at the same time, use that as a kind of experiential space for them to really commit to see what they can do in their communities. So in 2025, we were fortunate to have been sponsored by the Hans Edel Foundation, which is to do 3 fun and interactive games that have been championed by Nafimane. So one of those games, we did it with the King's College in Windhoek, the Van Rijn Primary School, and the Hage Geingob School. Over the years, we've done it with quite a number of years, but unfortunately from Hans Edel Foundation, I guess it's often very contingent on the finances. But still, we are very fortunate, and I think we are confident that they'll be on board next year as well, as we just finished finalizing the reports with Hilda Mary today. So another thing, so what are some of the key outcomes, sort of key lessons from the games? One of them is, of course, climate change awareness. What we've noticed is also that we have had recurring schools. For instance, Van Rijn is one of the schools that we've always been building this kind of relational connection with in terms of supporting their environmental clubs. Also community engagements. So as part of the games, we've deliberately set up a space for also committing towards environmental stewardship, that young people are not only taught about the SDGs, but that they are sensitized to do something from their communities. Because if not them, who else, when the future is really about them? And the future is already emerging as it is. And of course, hands-on learning. These games are experiential in the way they are run, is that young people learn to do things, whether it's planting trees or whether it's coming up with anything that is creative and that is innovative. And then, I thought we also highlight, because one of the things about news is that, of course, we are a voluntary organization. And I think whatever we do within news also reflects outside. And I think just to highlight some of the things, Nafimane, she had the opportunity this year to be as a speaker at a tour in Germany as part of, and the kind of discussions were around green hydrogen and the neo-colonialism. And in terms of green hydrogen, because we have also been very focal to make sure that all the concerns of communities and concerns relating to biodiversity are captured. And of course, she's also featured on multiple platforms, and she's quite a doer. And also from my side, just a small reflection as well. Of course, strategically, my aim is always to connect news and whatever platforms I've been involved in Namibia beyond, and of course through my PhD as well, that I can hopefully finish next year. I'm also looking at ways to put Namibia on a sustainable pathway. And of course, most of the times when we attend conferences or when we present, I go with a news head. And this year, I was very fortunate to be part of a big discussion as part of the Bulletin group in Japan. And the Bulletin being quite a big platform founded by Donella Meadows. For those of you that might know the name, she was an American writer and a systems thinker, and she established the famous book Limits to Growth. And in 1982, she founded a network of scientists from around the world that would assemble every year to discuss the issues that are pertaining to the climate. And this year's theme was living with the climate crisis. Because as we all know, the crisis is here, and it's really about how do we build resilience. And often we are fixated with wanting to stop the crisis. Often we want to create efficient systems and call them sustainability. But in doing that, we forget that in ourselves, we are already living with the crisis. And it's really about how do we create resilience in the way that communities are able to bounce back from the shocks and are able to adapt to what is really coming, what is happening and what is to come. And yeah, I was also very fortunate to have been awarded the Best Environmental Advocate. It was supposed to happen next year, but the awards happened this year in Walfish Bay, and I was awarded this in absentia. We also have one of our board members, Lisa Lisho. She's currently in Katima Mulilo, and she's just completed her master's in water resources management in 2024. And she just got recognition for water cooperation and diplomacy from the University of Geneva. Why am I highlighting this? And of course, we have many other members. We have Nadine in the floor as well. She's doing quite a lot of significant work. Nafimane and those of them that are not here. And I'm specifically highlighting this to show that whatever we do within news doesn't stay with news, but most of it really surfaces outside our day-to-day occupations, whether as students or whether as researchers or whether as scientists. And for us, this is really key because I think it's fundamental that we have a space for mentorship within and outside news. So one of our flagship projects as well is the EI Tracker, which is really a very pertinent initiative that is being spearheaded by John. And it's really there to make sure that we improve public access to EIA processes and that there's enough information and early stage transparency. Most of the times, I think information really and the power to approve and disapprove EIAs really sits within government. And we thought that there's quite a lot of things that are being done there. And what better way to have a platform that allows us to keep track of all the developments happening and that we make sure that all affected parties have a say and that we make sure that, of course, we are objective in our opinions and that whatever developments do not hinder or do not affect biodiversity and important conservation areas, because these are quite key life support systems. And it's really up to us as news to make sure that our views are aired. And John, if I'm correct, this is the second year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
2023.
Great. So this has really been a great flagship initiative under news as well. We, of course, organized a couple of talks. I mean, we would have loved to have more talks, especially seeing more students. I mean, as you can imagine, one of the things that we've been noticing over the years is really that we have a very poor connection to universities, not intentionally, but it's because we feel there's not really enough platforms for young scientists to come and to present their work. And of course, we've been trying our best to connect to the Namibia University of Science and Technology, to UNAM, to really give a platform where young researchers, junior researchers can come and present their work. But nonetheless, this year, we had quite interesting talks, again, organized by John, our chairperson. So one talk was about the Namibian Nature Reserve and how conservation is happening in Africa's first quiet wilderness reserve. And another one was also Fangs on the Move, which was looking at behavioral and ecological shifts in translocated speeding cobras. And then we also had the reintroduction of giraffes in the Namib. Maybe John, would you like just to reflect one or two words on how these talks were? Because of course I wasn't present. I think it would be nice to hear, what were the key takeaways?
We hold these talks and they're normally quite well supported. It's nice to be hearing the voices of young students coming through the system, like the Kume with his giraffe talk, and Francois Theart with the well-known snake eye. He was with us a few years ago. He's moved on from there now. And we are hoping that we'll have more talks probably on NUST campus itself next year to actually try and involve students more and get more students to talk about their work and more student participation. conservation in those regions.
Great, thanks, John. Yeah, and of course, I think again I will have to put you in the spot, John. And this is really another flagship initiative that is being spearheaded by John, where they are busy updating the environmental profile of the Ike National Park.
So that original environmental profile was produced 30 years ago, project of the Dev Research Foundation and Namibia, and we just feel that with the intense focus on South Hive and all the projects which are planned there, like green hydrogen and so on, that a lot more has been discovered about South Hive, vegetation-wise, fossil-wise, archaeology, all sorts of aspects. There's a lot of new information coming out of that area, and we are compiling another environmental and social profile of that area, updating all that information. So there's contributions on botany, the top right picture, and people writing about the brown hyenas, other fauna. We've got an archaeological chapter, archaeology and history. So all of that will be combined into a much thicker volume than the original one, due for publication next year.
Great, thanks, John. Great. And now that sort of we reflected on what has been done in 2025, and of course, I believe that, first of all, one key thing is that I believe that we could really sign up more youth, especially having a lot of having our universities in Namibia, and I think the Namibian Environment and Wildlife Society would really benefit with more young students and youth coming on board. Because it's for them to really sensitize them and to be part of conservation efforts. Because often, I think even now a recent study just came back where it speaks to the fact that about 60% of the human connection, they say 60% decline in the human connection to nature. That's a recent study that came out 2025, and of course this has to do with quite a lot of development that is happening, from urbanization to extractive activities, and of course advances in technology. And of course for us, we understand that conservation and sort of nature is quite key, because fundamentally we are because nature is. And that's really why we do what we do. So what does the future outlook of news look like for 2026? And beyond? So we would really want to grow our youth membership through stronger partnerships with universities. At the moment, we have a good relationship with the University of Science and Technology, with the Namibian University, and I think IUM also have a very good Department of Sustainable Development, and I think it will be key to involve them. And we also would like to create more platforms for students to present research and innovation. As I previously reflected on, getting junior researchers to come here to showcase their work, and of course, allowing an opportunity for them also to inspire, but maybe also to connect them to potential mentors within the space of environmental conservation and sustainability as a whole. So we would also like to deepen community engagements in resilience building activities. I've reflected on the fact that, of course, sustainability should, at the heart of sustainability, be the idea of building resilience. It's not, it's quite evident that as much as we have a significant decline in biodiversity, society is really now building up with tension. We have almost 50% of young people unemployed. We have a lot of inequality. And within that light, we have livelihoods that are not there. And of course, what better way to support communities with sustainable ways of being, one of them being obviously supporting food systems, like setting up backyard gardens, as we've been doing over the last 2 years, working closely with orphanages where we've helped them set up small backyard gardens to supply them with food. And of course, would like to increase outings to conservation landscapes for schools and members. So really getting our members out there in conservation landscape, which again is one of those ways of also getting them to reconnect to nature. Often accessibility is also a problem to people. Students often might not have the privilege to access, landscapes where they can just go and be themselves and be one-in-one with nature or whatever outing. So we really want to have more of those. And of course, we want to strengthen visibility in schools and youth-focused programs. I think we are strong when it comes to this point. Over the last 5 years, we've really done a lot with the schools. And we've also been noticing that there's been a reoccurring schools coming back to us and requesting that we run more games. And I think for the next year, we can really do with more games. And I think as we've looked at the budget, there's still a bit of budget for the games for the SDGs. And then also one of the key things is that we would like to take a stronger advocacy position on key extractive activities. We might have been reporting over the years. We've been keeping a good eye on the green hydrogen industry, thanks to Nafimane, the work of John as well. There's now been serious concerns with the uranium exploration in Stambrit. And I think those are quite pertinent issues. We need to keep an eye out. And of course, Recon Africa in the Okavango Delta. I mean, this is quite recently, they just announced that they have found they found some hydrocarbons. But of course, we've been working very closely with a network of organizations, civil society organizations. And maybe just to reflect is that surprisingly, a day before Recon announced that the J. Parker, who is very much involved in Recon's wife, sold her shares. So those are some of the tendencies and some of the things that we are keeping an eye out. But of course, the idea is not really around the scheme, but for us, we understand in as much as extractives would like to make the public believe that there's oil, they are still risking pristine ecosystems that are very pertinent for communities. And I think for us, that is the end goal, is to make sure that whatever activities are there do not harm ecosystems that have been supporting communities for the longest. So maybe just to end my report is to really say, I think with news, I wholeheartedly believe that more can be done to reach more young people. And I think youth also exists to give hope to young people that has given up because of what is happening. As individuals in the world, is now every man for himself. And as most of the young people, as you can imagine, are exposed to quite a lot of misguided definitions of progress. And I think it's really up to us to bring them back and say, well, progress is thriving ecosystems, progress is thriving communities, progress is thriving conservation. And I think news should and be that lighthouse that exists to inspire those young people. So with that said, we have a list of nominated committee members that would like to stand for the next year. John Pellet has been nominated for vice chair. I mean, John, if you do not, if you don't have a,
I'm not going to do anything public here.
And Andreas Bruckner, if we still trust him for piggy bag. Hilda Mary Botha, I should recognize Hilda Mary that we've been very fortunate to have Hilda Mary as our angel, working tirelessly around the desk and working with all emails and making sure that all the announcements goes out to our members. And we really appreciate that, Hilda Mary. Thank you for being you, and thank you for being behind that desk every day. And then, of course, we have Nafimane. And she's our lovely guest speaker tonight. I don't think anybody would have something against a guest speaker. And then we have Ngonyofi Kafula. She's now working with IUM as a lecturer as well. Unfortunately, she could not be here tonight. And then we have Nadine as well. And then we have that guy.
We left out Lisa Lisho.
No, Lisa Liso is there. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've mentioned that Lisa Liso. Okay, Lisa Liso as well. And she's in Katima, Mulilo now, but she has also been with news for the longest time. And then, yeah, so I think for the next year, I can still stand as the chair. And then Hilda Mary as well for the office coordinator. If there is no objectives, we can all agree that these nominations have been approved, but also given that at the next meeting, when we ratify the fact that we did not reach a quorum, that all the members present there would be happy with the committee members. Thank you, Diana.
Reinhard, you've got a quorum now.
Yeah, that's my question.
You've got a quorum now,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
the whole thing can go as is.
Yeah, can I just have an indication of, because it should be news members, correct? Yeah.
The news members,
Yeah.
yes. So who's the news member?
Can I just have an indication of who's a news member?
Well, I actually have 2 votes. No, 3.
Yeah, so we were close enough. And I think for the next meeting, we can then really ratify that and get it approved. Or-
As members be accepted if they're all happy to go on.
yeah,
But can you just announce that everyone must please sign the register?
Yes.
So we've got those names on the
yes, please.
report.
Yeah. Great. With no further ado, from my side, thanks.
Second nominations.
All right, so who seconds the nominations?
You do that, but I don't know if everybody yet.
I think next.
Let's get the meeting done.
Thank you for that. So with no further ado, of course, I would like to thank, and from myself and the committee, I would really like to thank you all for being present. As I always say, I think, sustainability is really being about present, and just having, the time to come, because these are quite pertinent issues. And of course, we apologize that, of course, we have to hold the AGM now. As you could imagine, it was really a long year, and also because, it's often difficult to get our committee members at one place at the right time. As I'd mentioned, that we are all fixated with so many other commitments. So, is there any discussions, any pertinent questions, any issues? Yes.
I just want to thank you for your chairman's report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So without further ado, tonight we have a guest speaker, and she's not alien to all of you. So Nafimane Hamukoshi is just completing her degree in political science at the Namibia University of Science. Sorry, I'm always biased, at UNAM. And she has been with us, I think, for almost 3 years now. And she's really she's the youngest and one of those go-getters. And I think we are very fortunate to have her on our committee. And as I've mentioned before, she has been really spearheading the games with the schools and many other things she's been doing as part of their commitment to the sustainability discourse. So with that said, I would like to call on our guest speaker for tonight, Nafimane Hamukoshi. Just next, no?
Yes,
Yeah. To the right.
my presentation.
Yeah, this I said.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. As introduced, my name is Nafimane Hamukoshi, and I'm going to talk about gamifying sustainability, how playful learning helps children understand the sustainable development goals, and we're just gonna get into it. Oh, the color changed. It was black. Okay, so the first thing is, how do I help kids get to grips with sustainability? So the games aren't just an environment where it's like complex, difficult learning. It's something that is very open, and it makes it very easy for kids to learn because kids learn best through stories, movements, and imagination. So when we turn learning into a game, children feel connected to the topic. And this also shifts children from just knowing about the Sustainable Development Goals, but also trying to do something about it. So there's an agency that grows from kids trying to do something about it rather than just listening in a conference and then not taking anything from it because they're involved in the games. So it's a playful way for kids to learn. So why gamifying sustainability? Because this was inspired by my trip in Germany, hence the topic and the theme. So I'll also get into that as well. So children learn by doing, by feeling and imagining, because this builds empathy with the kids. And they can step into different roles and understand each other's experiences. And most importantly, games turn awareness into agency. Children feel they can make a difference in the world. So sorry about that. So the first game that we ran this year was Sustainable Goal Game 1 was Walk in My Shoes at Hage Geingob High School. So basically, this focused on the SDG 5, which is gender equality. And what happened here is that I gave the kids different roles written on paper, and they had to absorb and consume the role that they'd been given. For example, there's a guy that was given, there was a girl that was given the role of being a husband that is being assaulted and being abused by the wife, for example, and she now has to go to the police station and report the case. And now the police officers that are there started laughing at the man. So how did that make him feel about it? So it also put the kids into it plays the kids into the different stereotypes that are formed by society. For example, the kids would understand what people actually go through. And another one would be a guy that is wanting to further his studies in, what is it called? It has to do with cooking, being a chef. Yes, that. So there's a guy that wants to pursue that as his degree, but then there are a lot of girls that are surrounding him. They're like, oh, and other guys as well. And they're like, you can't do that as a man. That those kind of degrees or qualifications are for women and not for men. So after this game, a lot of kids, when we had the reflections, they came out and they were like, oh no, I felt so bad. I felt so discriminated. It seems like I was the person that would go through this on a daily basis. And a lot of people go through that, but it's just not spoken about. And then the second game was Environmental Walk. It was inspired by the Privilege Walk. So with the Privilege Walk, we mainly focus on SDG 1 and SDG 2. However, I saw the need to involve the environmental aspect in the Privilege Walk so that we could analyze climate vulnerability with inequalities as well, because it's something that is also not mostly highlighted in different discussions. So I wanted them to understand the inequalities that also comes with climate vulnerability. So this is basically me handing out roles again. And at the end, we had a lot of kids making personal pledges for sustainability in their communities. And a lot of them said, I'm going to tell my sister, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And they always asked that we come back so we run more games, more fun ways for them to engage. And then they can also take this with to their communities. And then the last game was Locate the Sustainable Development Goal game. So basically what happened here is we had different SDGs that were placed not in the right order, but they were basically just placed simultaneously so that the kids could find it a bit fun and engaging to locate the Sustainable Development Goal games. And the reason why I chose this game for this specific school is because this is a primary school. so they don't have prior knowledge to the Sustainable Development Goal games. And even though Van Rijn is a primary school, Van Rijn Primary School, we have had games with them in the past, and majority of the learners that came to the game were part of the previous game I ran with them. So this game was an eye-opener for the kids so that they could understand and grasp what Sustainable Development Goals are, and also to for them to familiarize themselves with the games. So basically, with the goals. So basically what happened here is we had the goals lying down on the floor, and I would make a statement. For example, the woman and the men are not treated the same when it comes to a specific job, for example. So which Sustainable Development Goal is it linked to? So they were divided into 3 groups, and one of them would run, they're divided into 3 groups, and every group had a representative. So with the representatives, they had to run from the back to where the SDGs are laying, and they had to choose the correct SDG. So they have to go there and they have to search which SDG relates to the statement that was made. And a lot of them familiarized themselves with the SDGs, although some of them were already aware of the SDGs, but the game was really fun. Okay. So now this was the Germany study tour that I had in Leipzig earlier this year in October. So this is the group of people and that I was working with during the week. So the main theme of the workshop was real world labs and digital labs. So there was a distinction that was made between real world labs, which was the games that I do because they are physical, they're in person. And then they had the digital labs now. And these digital labs is, for example, the games that we usually have on our phones. So the realization I got from this specific workshop is that a distance shouldn't be a barrier, because we can try and work with people who are good with creating apps that could create sustainable development goal related games. So I've spoken to some of my friends that are in those fields, and they'll be helping me when it comes to creating sustainable development goal games. And now we are basically just in the process of highlighting the ideas of which games we can actually turn into an app. So most of the games that were presented there were digital. Mine was the only different one. But however, the feedback that I got was my games are more interpersonal. Is it interpersonal? They are more interpersonal because they could relate to whatever. And what I did was the roles I gave them, because the game I ran, there was the privilege walk. So the game I ran there, I gave them Namibian roles, so they could also see the reality of what's going on in Namibia. So, and it was also linked to the environment, because I do not want to remove the environmental link with also inequality, because it's something that, like I said, is mostly left out. So one of the things that are coming up from the workshop as well, I'm working on a research on how to use indigenous knowledge. How, for example, my grandmother would always say, it's going to rain in 2 days. So I want to understand, how do you know that it's going to rain in 2 days and it actually happens? So I want to tap into that knowledge and then see how we can transform it into games and then run it with the kids as well. And not just with the kids, but then with other people as well. But it's something that I'm working on as well. And I'm currently also working on an article for them on the same topic. I already started with the abstract. I'm not yet done, but then it's due end of this month or before the month ends. So there are new game ideas. One is using digital labs to stimulate climate futures. So the one I'm working on with a couple of friends. And then the other one is games that merge storytelling, technology, and lived experiences. And then the idea specifically for Namibian youth is hybrid digital, physical, sustainable development goal games. One that was also displayed in Germany, whereby they had, I didn't participate that time because I was sick. So I couldn't, because of the weather, it was very cold. So they had a phone and then they had the physical things that they were using for the game. So they showcased the game through, it was basically a hybrid digital physical SDG game, like I said, but I can't necessarily explain the whole outline of the game because I was not there. And then also local storytelling integrated into global challenges. And another thing is what I'm looking forward to is also maybe capacitating school teachers, high school teachers and primary school teachers to also run the games with the kids, because there is a school in Katutura called Namtuni Primary School. They have a wall painted sustainable development goal games. But when I went to run a game last year, none of the kids had an idea of what the SDGs are, but the SDGs are painted on their school wall. And I ran the game at the end of the year, which basically means the kids are very, not ignorant, they just don't care because no one saw the need of introducing and explaining to them what the SDGs are and what they mean. So now I am looking to expanding the games to more schools. Like I said, distance shouldn't be a barrier. So we're looking to expanding the games to the north, to the south, to the east, to the south, every corner of Namibia, and to also develop a digital Namibian sustainable goal game inspired by Germany. There's a quote that I learned while I was in Germany as well by Alvel Toffel, I think. He said the future belongs to those who are willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And then also to train teachers and youth leaders to facilitate play-based learning, and then continue turning the SDGs into living, breathing experiences for everyone. And in conclusion, I would just want to say the heartbeat of sustainability or sustainable change belongs to young people. Thank you. Any questions? Oh, and everything is being done under news.
Any curiosity, any silly questions, serious questions, comments? Yeah, thanks. I've just got an idea here. We've had an inquiry to news from this Wabwata youth group. And so these are people who live up in a very different kind of environment from what children in Katutura would be experiencing. But I think there might be a nice opportunity to bring some of these SDG games, to actually share some of these games with kids up there in that Wabwata youth group, and their kind of experiences are going to be very different from what urban kids experience in Katutura. And there might be a nice way to merge these things. So that's something that I really think we should build on. They have contacted us a few times to say, hey, news, we want to do something with you. And I think this is really something we should pick up on next year. Try and get that going. And it links in nicely with this whole thing of learning through play.
Yeah, absolutely. You as a person alone, do you think there's enough capacity in order to go ahead with this project? Because I think one must create much more capacity to broaden the base in order to have much more impact.
I think
you cannot train all teachers so that they learn playful teaching, and the kids, and visit all the schools. I mean, it needs capacity. So what are your ideas on that? How to
Okay, so one of my ideas is I've seen a lot of funding proposals, funding opportunities online. Some of them, okay, there was a presentation we had at an event, and they mentioned about COP30 and the bureaucracy and whatever happens there. So getting into environmental funds, especially from that specific, forgot the name, but that specific institution, it's very difficult because you have to fight government agencies. But one of the things I've been doing is spotting out the different opportunities and seeing which ones we can apply. But so far I've only seen for that institution, and after the presentation that was given by a lady at that event, she said that it's very difficult for you to actually tap into that funding because you're fighting with government agencies. So now I'm just looking for other funding opportunities, and also maybe Hans Heidel Foundation will be willing to work with us, and to continue with the funding process, because they also do have initiatives where they go up north, where they go to the south, when they go to Valves and different places in Namibia, and maybe we could also ask them for any assistance or to get a number of teachers from different regions in one room, because I've seen the impact that has, and then train those teachers to train the other teachers as well. That also makes it very easy and more financially viable as well.
When we're speaking about the games, right? Like, there's no money value related to it, right? When we talk about the games, you go to the schools and you are educating people using the games, and there's no monetary value, right? And so I was thinking, it's just that this year I've not been using my brain the best of my ability, but then I can, because I was thinking like probably next year or like to create some sort of structure instead of just waking up today and being like, 2 weeks after now we have to do this, this, and this. I was thinking that we create some sort of structure where we had like outlined activities that should happen, like as in like serious and it should happen at this specific day or within a month. And I was also thinking with the games, I have a way where we can literally host a game, like probably every month for different schools. Like probably every month we have one school, just like that. But we have to create the structure where we outline the schools already. I think by next year we have to have a structure to say that, this 20 schools, these are the ones that open together. Let's say 12. Or like whatever, we might tackle 2 schools in 1 month, but it's just the structure where we be like, this month, this school, we know already month for the year they tackle this school. Because if we talk about the games, I don't think there's a lot of like relief funding involved and stuff like that. And also, I can also use my way to like, we can literally put this like in, we talk about the newspaper and news, because I realize that it's not something that we do. I don't know why we don't do it. Like if we are hosting something, we just throw it in the Namibian and whatever. Those things cost money, but that's not, don't worry about it, because we have a way where we can incorporate the social awareness, like there's a social awareness portfolio where we don't have to necessarily pay for our information in newspapers. So I think just like an outline structure, like that would really like help, like when we really outline our things at the beginning of the year, just get some sort of structure. Because I realize the reason why we are in this situation right now is because there's no structure. We literally just wake up today, we are like, okay, next month I think we can do a talk, or we wake up and we're like, oh no, maybe we should do something now. But then if we have some sort of structure, knowing that this is what we're going to do this day or this month, then pretty much better, we much would market or would influence people much more better than now we have like an outline time to like market what we are going to do. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll take it up. We'll take you on this. I think the next strategic meeting, I think this is going to be next night.